Hello there everybody and welcome back to my team career mode as we prepare for episode 19 at the USA Grand Prix. A quick look back at the previous episode at Japan. We managed to scrape a single point. We fell a little bit back in the race, but nonetheless we did get at least something. And as we saw earlier, we're still hunting down AlphaTauri in the Constructors' Championship as we jump into qualifying at COTA, a track which I am not particularly comfortable on, to be honest. It's a very awkward Tilke layout, and unfortunately I'm not very good at it, but we still need to keep pushing hard and try and find some pace. Apologies as well for this episode being a little bit delayed. I have been, and I still am a little bit sick, so I took a bit of a break just to rest my voice and my head, but we should be back into daily uploads, hopefully. Anyway, through the lap now, we are currently positioned 14, so we are still technically safe. Most importantly though, we are finding improvements on this lap as we enter the long back straight between turns 11 and 12 as the sun sets in front of us. Quite glary and actually a little bit difficult to see, spotting out that braking point at the 100-meter board for the awkward left-hander into the stadium section, which is again quite awkward. Low to medium speed corners, a lot of brake trailing required through these sections to try and carry this momentum. Very easy to lock a front if you're not careful, but we are 3/10 up at the moment as we go through sweeping right-hander on the lead up to turn 19 down into 5th, and we flick it in, making sure we don't hit that sausage curb, using all the track possible. And then run up to the final corner. It will be an improvement, and I think it should be enough to get us through to Q2. We'll wait for confirmation, and it is position 8. So very happy with that result. On to Q2 now, to see if maybe we can crack into the top 10, put ourselves in a great position, try and get some points against AlphaTauri. Now this is our first lap of qualifying 2, and I believe this does end up being my best run, so we'll have to see how good that time is and where exactly it will play us as we flick it through 3, 4 and 5, getting a decent run through there, and we extend the track a little bit and a little bit there as well, but it's okay. We'll continue on. We'll pretend we didn't see that. I do run normal corner cutting. Probably next season though I will put it on strict, just to avoid me being a little bit too cheeky with track limits. We continue on though, once again onto this back straight, and the sun is getting even worse. Tire temperatures though not getting too hot. That first sector with the new patch, very tricky. Had to play around with the temps a little bit in practice to ensure that they didn't go out of the operating window too far. And we'll be putting them to strain once more through the stadium section. A good run. Relatively clean so far. This awkward left-hander always trips me out a little bit, turn 15. But we skate it through quite nicely, and with the improved traction on this patch, it's not too bad. A little bit wide there through the right-hander, the long sweeping right, and a little bit wide as well through turn 19. But we move on now to the final corner. Just need to hook it up here. We hit the curb nicely on the inside, run it out wide, and it's good enough for position 4. That bumps us down though into position 10 as we move forward into the session, and as we go on to our second lap, looking for an improvement, but I don't think, oh yeah, not with that. It's not going to be. Completely misjudging the first hairpin there, losing 3/10 straight away. Certainly not ideal. We haven't been able to find any of that delta back. In fact, it has just gotten worse, so it's going to be about a 6/10 loss on our second lap, and we are currently position 11, so we are not going to make it into Q3 as we look to try and hook up this lap, but it won't be enough. And it's looking like it'll be P11 for the race.
Welcome once again then to the United States Grand Prix here in the magnificent city of Austin. It was here in 2018 that Kimi Raikkonen delighted the world by taking the top step of the podium for the first time in 114 races. There's always a record to be broken, so what, I wonder, is in store for us here today? It's the Circuit of the Americas then, situated 14 miles outside of the great city of Austin. This is a 3.6 mile lap with 20 corners, 10 to the left and 10 to the right, and top speeds of around 200 miles per hour. Overtaking opportunities are available into turns 1 and 12, especially with that rear wing DRS wide open. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Lando Norris will lead us away from pole position, and starting next to them is George Russell. Moving on to the rest of the grid, we have Perez, Fernando Alonso, Valtteri Bottas, Mir, Ricciardo. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. Leclerc, Albon, and Pierre Gasly. Hamilton, they've taken a grid penalty. Magnussen, Guan Yu Zhou, and Verstappen. Stroll, Sainz, Nicholas Latifi, and Mick Schumacher. Ocon, Vettel, Tsunoda, and Jack Aitken. Which of these talented drivers will come out on top today? It's just about time to go to the track for the beginning of the race, but before we do, Natalie Pinkham, what types of strategy do you think we can expect going into today's race?
Well, there's a lot that both driver and the team have to keep in mind when going into a race. The tyres, fuel, energy recovery system, the list goes on and on. But I think the key to today's victory will come down to the pit stop strategy. Come in too soon and you might find yourself needing more than one stop. Too late and you're putting yourself at a disadvantage by spending longer on worn tyres.
Here we are then, on the grid for the USA GP, launching away for our formation lap. And we are in position 6, so we have found huge ground as a result of penalties on the rest of the grid. So we are in a fantastic position to really chip it away at that margin against AlphaTauri. Again, we need a top 8 finish for that huge sponsor bonus. If we don't get it, we'll be set behind. And next season will continue to be quite a grind as we get the tyres up to temperature, we park it in our box perfectly. And now just waiting for the rest of the grid to form. We'll be looking for a good launch here on the run up to the hairpin. That steep uphill run. We could try and get Bottas, maybe Alonso here, and start pressuring a potential top 3. Our launch not too bad though, as we get away pretty cleanly. Leclerc quite quick on... Oh, I thought that was Leclerc on the outside of it, but it was the McLaren. Nonetheless though, we do get a bit of damage to the floor, copping a hit in turn 1, which will potentially cost us a few tenths on each lap going forth, which won't be ideal. Now navigating it through the S's on a full fuel load, very awkward and quite heavy to drive the car, but nonetheless, outside of the first turn, relatively clean. We are in position 5, and I know that we can try and pressure Alonso here early and get that track position against the Alpine. Easier said than done though, especially when one of the best overtaking opportunities is such a difficult traction zone out of the hairpin, and the AI are particularly strong in traction zones. But we'll look to try and tuck behind to see if we can stay within a second, and when DRS comes online, it could really open up the race for us. That said, obviously there's going to be some really quick cars behind Leclerc, a good example of that. So this race is going to be all about trying to balance attack and defense as we step it out sideways a little bit through the second sector. And it does look like Alonso is going to be gapping us a little bit, but equally we've been able to gap Bottas a decent amount as well. So we might have an outright pace advantage against him, and fingers crossed he can defend relatively robustly against Leclerc as Lando Norris sets the fastest lap. He is up the very tippy top of the standings at the moment, and McLaren potentially looking to snatch a race here with both Ferraris seemingly out of the picture at the moment as we move on to lap 4. And on the topic of Ferraris, Leclerc seeks a move down the inside, but he locks up into the hairpin. And we execute the switchback. Not necessarily because I know that I could overtake Leclerc and retain the position, more so it was just the fastest way to get through the corner and not tangle with him all that much. I know that after this first sector he's going to get me on the back straight anyway, so it was all about just trying to keep it clean and steady. Sainz is at the back of the pack. I don't know, I guess he must have got damage at the start of the race, so certainly not ideal at the moment for Ferrari, but they have already locked in the drivers and I believe the Constructors' Championship as well at this point, so they don't really have much to lose. As I activate overtake, heading onto the back straight, thinking that, oh, maybe I can defend against Leclerc. No, he is sailing past us with the rear flap open, and we just concede it and let him through. So that, again, is position 6 for us. Moving on to lap 5. As Hamilton, geez, has a look down the inside into the S's. That's very bold. Alexander Albon retires from the session, and a safety car has been deployed. So that will steady the flow a little bit against Hamilton, who's looking very pacey and very eager to get by. As we move on to the restart, Hamilton's still behind and Leclerc up ahead. Kind of hoping here that Alonso and Leclerc will squabble. Might give us an opportunity to find a little bit of ground. But on that topic, we also need to make sure we don't lose time to Hamilton. And if we have an opportunity to let him through relatively cleanly, then that's probably going to be the smartest move, looking at the sort of long-term game here, which is to keep our overall race pace consistent. Bottas, though, actually overtakes Hamilton, so that's the reprieve I guess we were looking for. It bumps them both out of DRS range as well, so can't complain much about that as we move on to lap 9. And here's what I wanted. Alonso and Leclerc battling into turn 1. Alonso down the inside, scrapes the side pod of Leclerc. A little bit of contact there, and they're still running side by side through turn 2 and into the 3-4-5 complex. It will even out or single file out. Alonso going quite slow, so I'm not sure, perhaps he has an issue of some description. And in fact, he's actually going to slow us up a little bit here, impeding us on the flick through 10, on the run down now to 11. So that's not ideal, but it means he's vulnerable heading on to the back straight. And I don't think he's within DRS range of Leclerc, so we're going to get a pretty breezy overtake here, all things considered, against Alonso, whose outright straight line speed is quite strong, but no match for us as we slot it down the inside, and he gives us the position, so some good clean racing there from the pair of us. And that's position 4 on lap 13 now. We retain it. So this race really falling into our hands a little bit at the moment, and it feels like we're on for a really good bag of points as the faster cars behind are struggling to catch us at the moment, stuck in traffic. As the mediums now fall off, we come into pit lane at the end of the lap to fit on the hard tyre compound. It looks like the majority of the field following a very similar one-stop strategy here today. Let's hope that the team can put in a clean pit stop. For the most part this season they have been quite consistent, and it looks like the team has once again done a really good job. So 2.9 second stop. We will keep our position in the chain, and we are released into position 9 now onto the start of lap 14 with cold tyres, and Perez on the soft tyre compound, who I swear this season has been doing some really strange strategies, continuing to do so here today, unable to get past us. And it is going to take us, of course, a bit of time to get these tyres up to temp. The car still a little bit heavy, and Perez smells blood in the water, wants to get this overtake done quickly. Not really doing either of us many favours though, and does it in an awkward spot on the track through 9, and doesn't even commit to it through to 10. I don't think he had the traction, so yeah, making that a little bit more awkward than it should have really been. Very tricky to overtake in that first sector. Probably just needed to wait for the run out of the hairpin of turn 11. And as you can see, He just has a much superior run there. Down the straight, he will fly past us. About 3 or 4 car lengths ahead, heading into the braking zone. We get through relatively unscathed. Our tyres now back up to temperature, and we still do have track position on Hamilton. Close behind him, though, is Gasly, and as Hamilton overtakes us, we go for a switchback. Hold that thought. We execute the switchback there onto Hamilton. Some really good driving, but again, the straight line speed of Hamilton is superior, and he has DRS as well. We're still going to try and hold it down the inside, though. He has a small lead on us, but we shut the door on the racing line. So some good defensive driving from us, and Hamilton actually now still behind to the end of lap 15. But my eyes are cast towards Gasly now. He's only 2 positions behind us, meaning that as Hamilton flies past, let's see if maybe we go for a move back down the inside. We can't. That means that regardless of where we finish, as Gasly's now right behind us, the gap we actually create, it's not much, and we're not going to chip away much at that lead. As you can see, yeah, focusing on that gap, it's 1.8 seconds at the moment. Worst case scenario is Gasly actually passes us in this race and AlphaTauri extend their gap, assuming that Aiken doesn't get any points and Tsunoda's out of the picture. So despite this overall being a good race for us individually, for the context of the championship, the Constructors' Championship, not ideal. Ricciardo now flies past us, much like Hamilton did, but this time we look for the switchback. We aggressively shut the door once more, leading in to turn 2, the sweeping right-hander, able to retain that position. Hamilton's long gone, but Vettel as well now in our sights, 6.5 seconds up the road. So I don't know what Aston Martin did in this race to find themselves in that position, but we'll have to wait and see exactly what Vettel's plans are, and perhaps how worn those tyres might be at this point. Could be able to catch him up. I don't think I had radio during this race. I think it glitched again, so I had no idea what he was on, but our hands are full elsewhere at the moment. Ricciardo looking to try and overtake us, heading into the hairpin around the outside, and now onto the straight. He's going to have a much superior run, and I don't think we'll be able to defend against this one like we did earlier on in the race, and we let him by. Gasly has found a lot of time on us behind, and the more we battle with Ricciardo, the more opportunities we give to Gasly to overtake us. And again, that is the absolute worst case scenario. I'd rather gap AlphaTauri by a point or 2 than them gapping us. So whilst Ricciardo does look a little bit slow heading into the 3rd sector, it's not enough for us really to go for a move and try and get that position back. With a little bit of dirty air, you can see the understeer that we are suffering. Still though, we will continue to aggress here and maybe get a good run through the final corner. We are still within DRS range, and Ricciardo's only half a second ahead. We have 10% of our battery remaining, so we flick it into overtake, and it's just enough to find a little bit of ground, but certainly not enough to go for an overtake. And Ricciardo keeps it pretty cool, calm, and collected there on the entry to the hairpin, and doesn't give us much of an opportunity. As we move on now to lap 25, Gasly has fallen 3 seconds behind, so we don't have to worry too much about that threat. But now Vettel in the picture, going quite slow, as I assume his hards have fallen off a bit of a cliff. Perhaps he's been on them for a long period in this race. I don't think he started on them, but again, I had no radio really to confirm exactly what his strategy was in this race. But what I can visually see is Ricciardo being held up here dramatically, and this would be huge. Imagine we overtake both of them, and due to the race being almost over, if Gasly doesn't find them either, well, that would be a big margin to chip away at. That would be absolute best case scenario. Anything in between, such as just finding Vettel, would also be quite good. Heading onto the straight though, despite the 2 of them battling, I'm not really in the picture here to go for an overtake way too far back, as Vettel and Ricciardo continue to run side by side through 12 on the run up to 13, still neck and neck, but an opportunity doesn't really present itself for us to find an overtake, and we'll just have to slot behind for now and hope that perhaps on the next lap or 2 we can actually make a move stick of sorts. And as we move on to the lap, we'll try and get a good run out of the final corner onto the start finish line. Vettel quite slow through the mid corner. We miss a shift though, so that's going to compromise our run at least a little bit, and Vettel able to maintain ground. He has DRS on Ricciardo and he tries to defend down the inside, but we get aggressive for the switchback. We just swipe the side pod a little bit, but it was relatively clean, and now we're through position 6. Ricciardo already a second ahead though, so I can't imagine we'll be able to threaten his position, and we're crossing our fingers that Gasly won't be able to overtake Vettel. As we move on to the start of lap 27, Vettel pits. So I don't know if he was doing some weird Alexander Albon Melbourne pit stop strategy where he ran the hards all the way to the end. I'm not entirely sure, but it does mean that we're going to finish in P6 and Gasly behind in 7. So P6 is great. If we get those points and AlphaTauri score next to nothing, it would have been huge. But the fact that Gasly finished right behind us kind of means it was null and void. But it was something, and we really now need to push hard in the last few races to find the remaining points required. Congrats to Jack Aitken for driver of the day as well.
A truly magnificent drive and a great performance from the entire team, securing victory here in Austin. Natalie Pinkham, how do you think they were able to set themselves apart today?
I think it was clear what the main contributing factor out of the track was: speed. It sounds like an awfully reductive statement, but fast cars win races, and we saw that today with our winner.
As the winners make their way up to the podium, one can only imagine the celebrations that will take place at McLaren tonight. Congratulations to everyone on the team, securing the win and proving that they're a force to be reckoned with out on the track. So then, Natalie Pinkham, who would you rank as your driver of the day?
Jack Aitken gets my vote today.
So then, Ferrari have now moved out of sight and out of reach. It's another triumph for the Italian team as they claim the World Constructors' Championship. Meanwhile, good work from Aston Martin this weekend, who pushed themselves further up the order. Well, that was certainly an exciting weekend of Formula One. Be sure to join us for more exciting Formula One action very soon.